Presented by Listen Headlines, latest world news from trusted sources.
BBC News World. November 18, 1916 America, New York, Australian school food van. I didn't believe in myself until I got this job. An Australian school is using a food van to help struggling students explore new avenues. BBC News World. November 18, 1908 America, New York, Ros Atkins on the missing Chinese tennis star Peng Shuai. Questions remain about the whereabouts of Peng Shuai, after she accused a top Chinese government official of sexual assault. BBC News World. November 18, 1902 America, New York, Poland border crisis. Camp empty as migrants move to warehouse. About 1,000 people from the Middle East have been trying to get into the EU from Belarus.
November 18, 1840 America, New York. Fresh look at pandemic origins points straight to food market in Wuhan, scientist says. A fresh look at the possible origins of the COVID-19 pandemic points straight back to the Huanan seafood market in the Chinese city of Wuhan, a scientist who has been studying the pandemic from the beginning asserted Thursday.
Fox World News. November 18, 1838 America, New York. Imprisoned Georgia opposition leader Saakashvili faints in prison amid hunger strike. Georgia's imprisoned opposition leader and a former president Mikhail Saakashvili fainted in the prison on Thursday amid hunger strike.
November 18, 1830 America, New York. Analysis. How low will Biden's ratings go? A new Quinnipiac University national poll has some very dire news for President Joe Biden. His job approval rating sits at a lousy 36%. November 18, 1813 America, New York. Malcolm X's legacy continues to haunt America's criminal justice system. The exonerations, after 56 years, of two black men convicted of the assassination of Malcolm X writes a grave miscarriage of justice and opens new questions about race and America's criminal justice system.
New York Times World News. November 18, 1809 America, New York. The U.S. Army Secretary to National Guard members who resist the vaccines. Prepare for discipline. Remaining unvaccinated could cost soldiers promotions, bonuses or even their jobs. Members of the Oklahoma National Guard on the steps of the Senate on Capitol Hill in January.
November 18, 1802 America, New York. How hyperpartisan media hijacked America. Partisan opinion has always been big business. The latest, Reality Check with John Avlon, Extremist Beat, tackles how much more dangerous it is today, with CNN's Oliver Darcy and former alt-right producer Cowlon Robertson.
New York Times World News. November 18, 1759 America, New York. Strike on U.S. base was Iranian response to Israeli attack, officials say. Iran has not acknowledged the attack, but U.S. and Israeli officials said it was retaliation for Israeli airstrikes, drawing the U.S. into Iran's shadow war with Israel. 5 armed drones were launched at the American military base at Al-Tanif, Syria, on October.
Mirror World News. November 18, 1757 America, New York. Surfer who lost large chunk of thigh in horror shark attack reveals how he survived. Brett Connellan was 22 when he suffered serious injuries to his thigh and hand off the east coast of Australia in May 2016.
November 18, 1754 America, New York. Turns out there was no Great Migration during COVID. The Great Migration may not be as pronounced as once thought.
Fox World News. November 18, 1749 America, New York. Biden asked China to release oil reserves to ease prices, boost economic cooperation. Report. President Biden appealed to Chinese President Xi Jinping to release crude oil from its strategic reserves in a move that would aim to stabilize rising oil prices, the South China Morning Post reported. Fox World News. November 18, 1738 America, New York. Mexico to deploy National Guard to Cancun following shootings in tourist area. Mexico will deploy National Guard troops to a popular tourist area near Cancun following a series of shootings, including one earlier this month that sent beachgoers running for their lives into nearby hotels.
RT World News. November 18, 1733 America, New York. Austria may lock down the vaccinated too. Just 3 days after unvaccinated Austrians were told to be quarantined, a provincial governor is pressing for a nationwide lockdown of all residents as COVID-19 infections continue setting record highs. New York Times World News. November 18, 1733 America New York. Belarus clears migrant camp, easing border standoff with Poland. Throngs of people, mainly from the Mideast, who had been living in freezing conditions on the border, have been moved to a giant warehouse. Their fate is uncertain. The large and increasingly squalid encampment near Bruzgi on the Belarus-Poland border was cleared of migrants by Belarusian forces on Thursday. New York Times World News. November 18, 1718 America New York. Greece, facing surging cases, adds restrictions for the unvaccinated. Germany restricts access to public transportation. Austria will impose full lockdowns in 2 states, and the Netherlands recently restored mask mandates in some public indoor places. Medical workers protesting mandatory vaccinations and the indefinite suspension of healthcare employees who have not been vaccinated, in Athens, in early November.
November 18, 1713 America New York. RNC chairwoman acknowledges Biden's 2020 victory. He's the president. We know that. Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel said Thursday she recognizes President Joe Biden as the 46th President of the United States, even as she claimed there were lots of problems with the 2020 election that Republican candidates should address. November 18, 1711 America New York. Woman with COVID wakes up after weeks on a ventilator on the day she was being taken off life support. Bettina Lehrman was on a ventilator for weeks after getting COVID-19 and hadn't responded to doctors' efforts to wake her from a coma when her family made the difficult decision to take her off of life support. November 18, 1707 America New York. Watch Lil Nas X get caught in a love triangle on Maury. Lil Nas X got caught up in a messy Maury scandal.
BBC News World. November 18, 1647 America New York. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Sudan and Ethiopia. The U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, says there's a real risk of Ethiopia pulling apart if a diplomatic solution isn't found.
November 18, 1641 America New York. DeSantis signs legislation against COVID mandates. Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis on Thursday signed what he called the strongest piece of legislation that's been enacted anywhere in the country, in opposition to coronavirus vaccination mandates on workers.